Hi, and welcome to Culture Lit, a podcast and community that explores Black women and romantic love through the lens of romance novels. I'm your host, Octavia Marie. Each episode of Culture Lit trains a spotlight on a new Black romance novel and then deep dives into the many themes facing Black women and love after 40. Be ready to laugh, sigh, and talk about Black women falling in love, yes, sex too, and the Black authors writing their stories. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Culture Lit. I'm your host, Octavia Marie, and today I am thrilled to welcome Monica McCollough, author of the powerful debut novel Songs of Lost Things, Sonata for the Sun. If you love books that are deeply emotional, rich with family dynamics, self-discovery, and powerful storytelling, then you're in for a treat. Monica's debut novel, Songs of Lost Things, Sonata for the Sun, is a breathtaking coming-of-age story that allows Lavender, a young girl with gifted musical mind navigating love, loss, and the weight of her past. This book had me completely hooked, from the storytelling to the complex relationships, and let's not even get started on the music. Monica weaves music into the fabric of the story in such a brilliant way, making it feel like an integral part of Lavender's journey. And Monica isn't just an incredible storyteller. She's also a very talented visual artist who created the striking cover art for her book. Today, we'll explore the journey of her protagonist, Lavender, discuss the themes of music, identity, and self-discovery that run through the novel, and getting insights into Monica's experience as an independent author. So grab your tea, cozy up, and let's get into it. Monica, we've been trying to get this interview done forever. So thank you so much for joining us today. Before I kind of get into the interview, let me just share a brief summary with the audience. The Songs of Lost Things, for our listeners who haven't had the pleasure of reading it yet, this novel follows Lavender, a musical gifted young girl whose life is upended when her father's plans to nurture her talent collide with her own desires to experience the typical adventures of adolescence. Years later, as a woman in her 30s who never kind of fully reconciled with her past, Lavender meets someone who reminds her of everything she's lost and everything she surrendered. And I think it's kind of like a beautifully crafted story around family, identity, and the courage to maybe reclaim your authentic self. So I guess for me, I want to start with the beginning of your journey writing Songs of Lost Things. It's such a powerful and layered debut. Was the storytelling always something you wanted to pursue, or what was the moment when you knew you had to write this book?
Well, first I want to say I'm glad to finally be here because yes, it's been a while. It's been a journey for both of us for various reasons.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
yes, but as far as the story, the beginnings of this story, I guess, started with me all the way back in high school. Kind of like this visual or this vision I had of this young girl or young woman who just had all these musical gifts and what that looks like when that's not achieved or what causes that, what would cause someone to lose all of that and not live up to what you would think she would become with all of these gifts and creative abilities that she possessed, like just like a gifted child. So it kind of shaped from that. Just someone who you would think had everything, just from a talent perspective, should have achieved. If they weren't like a star in some aspect as far as entertainment, they still had the abilities to achieve a plethora of things, and they just did not, and what that looks like. And from an internal and an external standpoint, because I think that's what happens to us in real life anyway. It's both things, So
Right.
yeah.
So that's really fascinating because your novel explores like several very powerful themes. And I think many of us can probably identify with one or more of these themes, like addiction and family bonds and generational trauma and self discovery. Which theme emerged first in your writing process? And then how did you kind of develop the other things around it?
I guess just family trauma, because I feel like, we're in this world, and
Mhm.
most of the first obstacles that most of us face are family dynamics,
Mhm.
whatever that ends up being.
Mhm.
And so that's where it came from first. Like, what would be the dynamics around this individual who, when people saw her or heard her, were just mind blown. And then they would look at her life and it just seemed like in shambles, and kind of like, how did that come to be? How did this
Right.
person end
Right.
up this way? So yeah.
So with that, I think you created such complex family dynamics in the novel. Were there like any particular characters who surprised you as you started writing and getting into the story? Or is there someone who maybe took a larger role or developed in ways you hadn't initially planned?
I believe the aunt, Elizabeth, I don't know how much I'm supposed to spoil or give away or whatever, but
I think a little spoiler is okay.
okay. She, to me, changed the most in a way. And I know that if anyone has read it, it may seem like a long time coming, or maybe she didn't, from the outside perspective, it may not seem that way. She was still kind of this like caustic, rigid individual, but
Mhm. Mhm.
that was like an outer shell in a sense. Really, when you look at how she began to approach Lavender and Chase later in the story, you can kind of tell that she had softened a bit, but
Uh-huh.
that was just an outer thing for her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then and some of that was mental health that she was also dealing with.
Mhm.
But she reminds me of a lot of people in my family. They're kind of rolled into one
Same.
character.
And I was as I was reading, I was
Right.
mhm.
Right. Kind of rolled into one character, and I ended up,
Highlighting in the book.
yeah, yeah. I really ended up kind of liking where she and ironically Lavender ended up, because you would never have thought that in a sense.
Mhm. Yeah, she was that yeah, her arc, her character arc was I think I was the most surprised by her character arc.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's what you originally asked, who surprised me the most.
Yeah.
I think it was her.
Because that was her it was her for me, and so I was like, I wonder if she like, did you mean to do or did it just evolve and that character evolved into some or did you intend for her to evolve like that when you started writing her?
I don't know how yes, but ironically, I was speaking with someone a couple weekends ago about characters, and this is kind of like, even as the author, the characters surprise you
Mhm.
because you give them a personality and a background, and you put them in certain scenarios, and they react how they react. I don't know
Mhm.
how to explain it. Like, they kind of just
I get
react.
it.
Yeah, they react how you would expect for them to react, given the personality you gave them. But also it's a compilation of their life experience too. All of that comes into it, and then they evolve into who this person is, even when you weren't even necessarily like writing it out
Mhm.
in the outline, like, this is who she'll be. No, she just kind of became that person. So
Yeah, I get yeah. So you talked about earlier about Lavender's like her talents and she had so much going on. Her relate Lavender's relationship with her guitar, it it kind of felt like there was like a representation of both like maybe freedom and then the burden throughout the novel. Was
yeah.
that kind of duality intentional or what did you intend for it to symbolize?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'll put it to you like, have you ever seen the movie Good Will Hunting?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, there
Um,
anyone who hadn't seen
right. I don't know.
Let's see.
I had some family one time. This is funny. I'm getting off topic. Who said they never saw it? But they said they never saw it because they thought it was about a dog. No lie. I mean, they saw Hunting, Goodwill Hunting. They was like, "Oh, this is about a dog." Like, and they never saw. I'm like, no,
That's
no.
hilarious.
It is. It's kind of like I just think about people who are so naturally gifted in certain things, and they're
Mhm.
given so many things in one particular area that they love it and it's free to them. But it also can be constraining because then people put expectations on them surrounding
Mhm.
this thing.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how what happened to Will in that story. But he also had his issues. Right. It is that. It's like I love this thing, I'm good at this thing, I'm my most free at this thing, but also when I do it, then it's like, oh, we expect you to do this and to do that. And now it's am I good enough to do like she almost does not want to be tested in that particular way
Mhm.
because now she's expected to be this thing. And with her background in history, it's like, I don't even know if I'm worthy of these accolades or whatever success would come with this. I don't
Mhm.
know if I'm deserving of it. I don't know that I would know what to do with it if I had it because I've never had it,
Right.
you know, this
Yeah, I'm like,
this positivity in my life. So
hey, romance book lovers. It's your host, Octavia Marie, and I've got something exciting to share with you. You already know how much I adore Black romance books. Now I've taken it to the next level. Introducing Culture Lit Podcast digital bookstore on bookshop.org. Visit bookshop.org/shop/Culture Lit Podcast. That's bookshop.org/shop/Culture Lit Podcast. This is the spot where you can find every swoon-worthy romance novel I've ever raved about on the podcast and so much more. Not only can you snag your next favorite read, but every purchase supports independent bookstores and celebrates the voices of Black authors in romance. It's a win-win for readers like us who love keeping the Black romance literary community thriving. Thank you for being a part of the Culture Lit podcast community and happy reading. I can't wait to hear what books you fall in love with next. Okay, so the other thing, there's so much in this book, and some of the other elements that I kind of found very interesting is how you weaved music throughout the storytelling. And I found myself like, oh, yeah, that was like, okay. Is there a Spotify list? But like each chapter opens with a song title that kind of sets the tone. So you have everything from Beyonce to Tupac to Ella Fitzgerald. Can you walk me through like how you selected these songs and kind of what they represent? Is it something personally they represent, or was it specifically supposed to represent something for Lavender?
the songs kind of summarize some of the chapters, summarize what that block of her life or that part of the story kind of felt like, the feel of it. Some of it is symbolic of kind of like a particular song that was prevalent in that part of the story. So maybe it doesn't represent that part of the narrative, but it was played at an integral part of a band life or the stage, or her dad played it in that part of the story.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's like a mixture of both of those things. Some of it, at least a couple of them, are a little kind of tongue in cheek when you know what the chapter is about. I could kind of think about one chapter in particular where Rihanna is like the song at the beginning of it that it references money. And the chapter does have money involved, but it's not like, a significant role in it, but it does reference money. So that was one of them that was kind of tongue in cheek, but most of it is just kind of like the vibe of that particular part of the
Yeah.
narrative in
Okay.
that moment and the feel of it.
Yeah, because I found myself sometimes when I would see the song, I'd be like, okay. And then I would go back after I read the chapter and be like, okay, wait, is there something I missed? And, like, are there Easter eggs in this? Trying
Right.
to find if I missed something, because it's just such a deep and like, and then I found myself like, because it's such a deep book and it covers so many powerful subjects, I found myself thinking, did I miss something? Did I go back? Okay, wait, does that mean something? So I really liked how you weave the music into it also.
And then
Um,
some of the songs, not to interrupt you, but like some of the songs
yeah.
were kind of like I heard them at the time and they inspired like an emotion or evoked an emotion
Mhm.
in me that helped me write
Mhm.
that particular part of the story. So
Yeah.
it's all
I
of
wondered
that.
about that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of part of this the songs became part of the story and also part of your process.
Right. And I didn't want it to
Okay.
be so I just wanted to feel kind of natural like that and a mixture of all those things because I felt like if I sat down and was kind of like, I'm gonna put this song with this chapter and this song, like it just
Yeah.
felt too
Yeah.
contrived. So
Yeah.
you're right.
When I'm reading, sometimes, especially when I read stories that the settings are so vividly drawn, I find myself being like, oh, like going back and maybe sometimes I'll research, I'll go back and look, and I'm looking for, it makes something. I might note something because I want to know if this exists, so I can visit. And so the settings in your book, you have Newark and Montgomery. There's also some references to the Dakota. Are those, and it's so vivid when you like, I can almost like see myself visiting these settings. How much of your own experience informed the settings, or did you do heavy research to kind of bring them to life?
Well, I'm from Montgomery, so describing Montgomery and being in Montgomery was just natural. Like I know that
Okay.
like the back of my hand. I chose Newark because Newark is the second place or location in the United States where a large chunk of my maternal family is just due to
Oh, okay.
the great migration or the first great migration.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to tie that in. My mom stayed there for a while, caretaking and all that type of stuff during the 60s. So that I had to research and draw on because I have not been to Newark specifically, but
Okay.
uh, I've been through New Jersey, I've been to New York, and just researching that and some of my own experience with just visiting and being up there briefly, I could, describe Newark as best as I could, I hope.
Right.
And as and as far as the reservation, that was a lot of research, trying to make sure that I did it justice. And because that is not part of my ethnic background at all, so I wanted to be very respectful
Right. Hmm.
and research that thoroughly, and pay homage to that part of, US history as well that they're trying to erase every day. Uh,
Don't get me
right,
started on another rant.
right.
We could
So,
be here. That's a whole nother
uh,
another episode.
right, and then that also was a part of kind of, the second the second great migration in a sense,
Mhm.
that's not I don't think it's spoken about as much, but the Black population in the South that moved out west,
Mhm.
that was the ultimate destination of one of the characters. Joshua's father was to try to get out west from the South. So just trying to be respectful of all that history and all those locations and what they meant through time. So
Okay. Okay. Look at you. So the theme in Song of Lost Things, I mean, it's lost things, whether it's like cultural identity, self-worth, relationships, and it's very strong in this book. And Lavender struggles, I think, with her sense of self, and that I found incredibly moving. How did you decide like which aspects of loss and identity you wanted to highlight in her story?
I guess I, in a sense, pull from my
Mhm.
lack of self confidence in many areas or imposter
Mhm.
syndrome, but also
Oh, don't
just,
don't get me started on that either.
but also thinking about what that would look like when you add on top of that abandonment issues and also taking on, in a vast portion of this book, she's like the responsible adult.
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah, and we have the
Ironically,
parentification of
right,
children.
right. As irresponsible as she's portrayed and thought of by so many people in her life, she was the one kind of holding a lot of stuff together. And so just what that feels like over time, constantly having to endure all that with what you think that you're deserving of, what's worth
Mhm.
even trying to go after because so you've been abandoned by so many things, so many people that were close to you that you loved, and it's like, why try in a sense? There's a sense of why try this thing, because it's easier to not try this thing. It's easier to think that
Right.
I'm undeserving of this, it's never gonna work, and I know the place that I'm in now, I know that, and I feel safety in that. So
Yes, yes. And then there's her complicated relationship with her mother, which like had me in shambles at times. It
really,
like yes, like the tension between them felt so real. And I'm like, okay, don't get triggered. Emotional walls, girl, emotional walls. But it felt so real sometimes. Like, what was your approach in writing their dynamic?
well, I will say that of all the narratives and themes in the book, this might be, and not from a mother daughter dynamic, but this might be one of the things that's closer to something that I understand. And it's because I
Mhm.
have a sibling who had his issues and continues to actually, but just for decades of my life, in and out of those situations constantly, like constantly.
Mhm. Mhm.
And originally, it was just kind of like, it's one thing for it to be a sibling, but what is that like for it to be someone so close to you as a mother? And how does
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
affect you
Which
for that to be your relationship? Right. For them to
um,
just never be able to
like,
get it
get it together.
together.
Yeah.
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 I'm telling you, I was like, "Ooh, let me highlight, let me come back." There are a couple of times I was like, "Ooh, let me put this down, let me come back to this." Uh-huh. Yeah. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, now at one point, I thought this was going to be a romance novel.
Mhm.
But the story kinda takes, like, an unexpected turn into self-love and personal healing, and that can be in a love story. I'm all about reclamation of yourself and the self-love and all of self-love and healing also. But I did, so I was like, "Oh, okay, wait, we're not going there." What made you take Lavender story in that direction instead of, like, the quote, unquote, "traditional romance genre route?"
Because I just didn't feel like Lavender was ready for that.
Okay.
Well, not me. Lavender was not ready for that.
Yeah, and I was like, "Yeah, are we gonna get there?" And I was like, "Okay, no, we gotta go." So, but then that brings another I don't want it such because that's kinda brings it like, are we gonna get another book?
You know, maybe this is my first novel. Like,
Mhm.
you in your introduction, I am primarily a visual artist and have been a visual artist all my life. This story has been on my heart for a minute, but um, I don't know. I'm kind of like learning as I go or feeling it as I go.
Okay.
There could be. I will be honest that the second idea I had for a story was not this or unrelated to this. So
Okay.
I don't know. The
Okay.
way I ended this story, it's kind of open.
I'm
So
like,
right.
I was like, is she writing another one? Because I feel like there's like she like you said, it left so much open, and I was like, is there another book? Because I'm flipping through the page like, is this it? So are we
Right.
done?
Right.
um, but when you talk about also the love, I mean, you talking about the romance in it, because I think we gotta talk about the love interest.
Mhm.
There's Chris, the stable and emotionally available one.
Right.
And then there's Caesar, the chaos and the temptation. I was like, woo,
Right.
boy. I was like, oh, she touching on all of it now. What do
Right.
you think kind of each of them represents in Lavender's life? Like, I have my thoughts, but what did you intend for them? Or do they mean anything at all? Or is it just, character driven? Or do they represent something in each part of her life?
Uh, they do. Actually, I'll be interested in what you think since you said you.
No.
Well, Chris to me is like an optimism. potential or hopefulness of what could be if she released herself of like all these burdens that she had
Yeah.
mentally and these chains she had from her past. And Caesar is just, the status quo. It's like what she knows is what she feels like she's deserving of. She shows up and she knows she can show up and do the Caesar thing all day long. It'll be fine. That could just go on forever. you know.
Yeah, so I kind of I feel like as I was reading it, Chris for me, I think represented like I think what we all have some of the vulnerability we have in accepting or the fear of accepting like the good stuff.
Hmm.
Like we've had so much of the bad stuff and I said this recently. I don't know. I think saw there was this like this meet cute story trending on Threads recently, and the girl who was writing the threads was, everybody was like, why didn't you do, 5, 6, 7, 8? And I think and for a lot of us, we've been raised to be so hyper independent
Hmm.
that it becomes like this kind of self-protection thing. And then we're so used to the disappointment and the chaos and temptation of Caesar that when something like the Chris shows up, we so used to that and so we're saying no to the good stuff because we're so used to the disappointment and the
Right.
norm, and saying no to that good feels safer than taking a chance on Chris. So I felt like Chris represented like the chance of the good stuff,
Hmm.
and Caesar represented, like you said, the status quo, and is what we're used to seeing and what we're used to protecting ourselves against.
Right. Because there's really no threat with
Right.
Caesar and being hurt. And if he does do something that annoys you, you really don't care because it's Caesar. Like, it's like I don't really care that I don't have a lot
Yeah.
of I don't have a lot of stake in this, but
Mhm.
it gets me alone. Versus
Yeah.
Chris, it's kind of like, wait a minute, like
Mhm.
I don't know this Chris situation. I haven't had this good stuff in a while, and I don't want to commit in a way. I don't want to commit to it because then that could fail and devastate me more than anything else.
Yeah.
I kind of want to keep my separations
Mhm.
from it.
But
Yeah,
that's
it was all
and
that.
I think that's that when I was thinking about the Chris and Caesar, it also like saying no to Chris or whatever, it feels like control. Like
Hmm.
if you say yes to it, it feels like you're trusting, and then trust is a whole different thing,
Right.
because that's when it really gets tricky. And then you know that's you have to unlearn so much to be able to say yes and to that, but that feels like you're giving up the control. But with Caesar, you control that because you already know what that brings.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, she just mentally at that stage was not ready for
Hmm.
a Chris.
Hmm. Yes,
Um, so maybe later
because
she could
she's
be.
so much she has to unlearn.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Did you always know how her romantic journey would end, or did that surprise you? Did you always intend for the romantic journey to end like that, or were you surprised by it taking that?
I I don't think I was surprised by it.
Hmm.
Because it just felt like I said, where she was in
She
her
wasn't
life,
ready.
she was not ready for that. Um, that it just felt authentic to who she was, or is at the time. Um, I just wouldn't expect Lavender, who was dealing with still hadn't overcome a lot of stuff from her past, still dealing with things. Definitely someone who needed therapy but had not,
Hmm.
gone to therapy.
Hmm.
I did not expect her to see Chris and go, "Oh yes, this is it. I know this is what I'm deserving, and I'll fall into your arms and we'll be happily ever after." And I just didn't
And it
see.
wouldn't have been authentic, I don't think.
Right. Right.
It
I just
wouldn't have
didn't
been
see
authentic.
her seeing him like that. I would see her fearing what Chris would mean or could be like, oh shit, like, oh sorry, can we curse on here?
Yes.
Sorry. Like,
We are explicit.
okay. Like, oh shit, I don't know what to do with this Chris thing and I don't want it. I want it, but I don't want it. Like, this is too
Yes.
much responsibility in a sense.
And I think we've all kind of been there, like, oh, but again, that goes to that control and trust aspect, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And in order to do that, there is so much that Lavender has to process and then unlearn. She can't even unlearn it until she even processes what it is.
Right. And it's the fear of success in a way too. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that fear of success, like, oh, if this works out, then this is more of a demand on me to make sure this continues to work out. And, I don't know if I can handle that pressure. I don't want to handle that pressure. So,
So let's pivot a little bit. You self-published this Songs of Lost Things independently, which is incredible because that means you're responsible for everything. What was
girl,
that
yes.
process? I can't even imagine, because self-publishing means you wear a lot of hats, from writing, editing, designing, and marketing. Like, what was that process like for you?
The publishing part of it, ironically, was the easy part in a sense because, again, my background is designer, artist, so I didn't have to find a cover artist or anybody to lay it out.
You're an
Like, I did
amazing
all.
artist.
Thank you, thank you.
And I'm like, can I have a print of that cover? That's a beautiful cover.
Oh, yes, yes. So of course you can. I did all of that. I found an amazing editor, Christy Glasgow. Look her up on Instagram and all the socials. But she did the editing for me. She did the three
Okay.
stages of the editing: developmental, line
wow.
copy, proofreading, and all of that. So, all of that is out of the editing part is definitely out of my pocket. The design part was not. So anybody self-publishing, you have to consider that. You have to pay for the cover art. You have to pay for at least 2 rounds of editing, I would say, if you don't do the 3 or 4. So, but with that expense and everything, yes, it is. I control it. I'm also in control of the marketing, and the marketing part is the most challenging
Is
part.
that the most? I was gonna say, is that the most challenge? It has to be.
Yes. The publishing was easy. I'm not
Right.
gonna say it's easy for everybody, but that part was pretty easy for me. The marketing is more difficult just simply because there's so much noise. And I'm not saying noise in a negative way, but there's just so much noise everywhere out there. That you have to be present on this platform and that platform, and you need to be buying ads to run here and there, and you need to go to this event, and you need to post multiple times a day on several platforms, and yada yada yada. And you can do all of that and
Well,
still
life
not
is life, and you still have to work and do
right. And
your
you still have to
full-time thing, and
work.
life.
Right. You still have to work. You still have your personal things going on, which was happening with me, I would say, right at the peak of when I needed to be marketing. And that kind of slowed me down on a lot of stuff. And yeah, you could do all of those things and still not get a lot of traction because there's so much noise, and then algorithms change
Well,
on you. Like, at one point it's, oh, post reels, that's what you need, and then you put all this energy
then
into
it's
reels.
carousels,
Yes, and
and
then
then
it's
there's
now it's
YouTube,
carousels.
and now it's Threads.
And it's just a lot. The marketing part was most definitely, and it continues to be the most difficult part for me, to the point where I'm not saying that uh, I have not given up on marketing for to the people who would be
Right.
listening. I've not given up on marketing, but as far as trying to do all the things that I just listed, I just
Mhm.
could not. I could not because again, going back to when I was like at the peak of when I should have been marketing a lot of or doing all the things. I had some personal stuff going on with my mom and health
Mhm.
stuff with myself and with her. And I just literally could not. And I was tired. And
Yeah.
so now I'm just kind of you get what you get. I'm just at this point, you
Yeah,
get
and
what you
that's
get.
what and that's what a lot of as you know, my background is really in PR,
Mhm.
but that's what I tell people is that especially starting out, you can do stuff yourself. You don't necessarily have to hire these big machines, but the key is focusing on one or two of the things because you can't
Mhm.
do all the things. You overwhelm yourself trying to do all the things, but focus on, where's your story, gonna get the most traction? Where's your ideal people? Where is your community?
Right.
And then that's what you focus on because you can't it's like you said, it's so much out there and there's so much noise. Go where your tribe is and focus there because I'm not getting on that tickety talk. It's like I don't it's not for me, and I
Right.
understand that's not for me because I can do a carousel, I can do the writing, I can do this, and I can edit a reel. But I think, for TikTok works a lot better. It's a real authentic thing, so it works
Mhm.
better when you're filming it like live as you go. It doesn't work for like curated film,
Mhm.
pre-edited. That's not really necessarily for TikTok, but
Mhm.
it's just a lot. And I was like, focus on like, one or two, your best
Mhm.
where you to get the most traction, where you getting the most community support from. Then focus on that. And that's where you focus your energies on. If is it reels or is it carousels or is it
Mhm.
stories? Because I personally think, and it just depends on what you're trying to do with your audience. But see, I went on a rant here. So,
Right,
but
no, I'm listening because obviously I still need this. I don't have the following that I wish I had because
mhm,
again, I'm just starting, so I'm listening and I'm still trying to learn this as I go as someone who again, as a designer,
yes.
mostly a designer and a visual
Let
artist,
me
I
give you
was
some tips
behind this yeah,
offline.
right. I
Give
was
you a little
behind the
strategy
scenes.
offline.
Yeah. I'm behind the camera, behind the scenes type
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
So being out
And
front,
see
I just,
and see that means TikTok and Reels might not be your lane.
right.
Your lane may be carousels and the written part of it and it could be the stories part of it and maybe threads and the writing aspect of it because you're really like you're funny online. So like but you're like me, I don't like the out front part of it. So
Right.
then for you, then it might not be, but TikTok and Reels might not be, and Reels can be your thing, but it has to be just done in a different way. Different styles work for different people, so you focus on what works for you and where you're comfortable, and then you make it work for you that way instead of trying to do what everybody else is doing, but you do it in a way that makes sense for you and where your lane is, because you know
Right.
we're the
Mm,
same that way, I think.
mhm. Right. And I know we gotta move on, but I was gonna say to new indie authors that's just coming along. The funniest thing about TikTok and Reels and stuff, and that's why I was just kind of like, you know what, I just gotta be authentic and be me and hope the right people
Hmm.
find me. Is that
Exactly.
most of my engagement, and not that I did a ton of videos like this, but most of my engagement on a specific video would come when I'm doing something trendy. Like, is there's a trendy song that everybody's using, or some trend, or not dance because I didn't really do dances like that, but I would try to tie it into my book. But that's
Mhm.
when I would get the most engagement when it was something like that and it was unrelated to my book. And then you would do something with your book, like a video like that would have, you know, thousands of views. And then you do something in your book and it's like 50 views. And it's kind of, I don't want new people to be discouraged because that's the experience of all of us. Like, when you hear indie authors talking on TikTok or Instagram or wherever, that's what we all experience. we get the most engagement where we're doing the random thing that's trending. And then we were like, hey, I'm glad you're here. Come look at this book real quick. And it's like 50 views.
That
Like,
would
wait a minute. Wait a minute. So anyway.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to do like a quick lightning round thing. A couple of quick questions, and you just answer
Okay.
with the thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
What song would be the theme music for your writing process?
Ooh.
You got this music. You said the writing sometimes was inspired by the music. So, like, what's your theme music?
I don't know if I have one particular song, but it would have to be almost anything from the Curtis Mayfield catalog.
Okay. Yes.
Almost anything.
Get that from you, knowing like some of your music tastes and seeing what you talked about. Like, I've been that one. That was a shocker for me.
Yeah, like that man was a musical genius, and
Yes.
he's not spoken about enough, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, it's timeless. So anything, it could be. It sounds futuristic. It sounds from the past. It sounds modern. It sounds all of that. So it can represent so many things.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What character from your book would you most want to have dinner with?
Well, from a very vain standpoint or shallow standpoint, I would want to have dinner with Chris just so I can look at him, because the way I described him, that man was fine.
Did we have like, is he inspired? Was Chris inspired? Was he completely made up, or was Chris inspired? I was like, is Chris my new boyfriend,
Okay.
or was he just
An amalgamation of several people.
Okay.
You know, there's some people I follow on Instagram, and I was like, you know what? I could see that. So I guess probably maybe Catherine, honestly.
Really? Okay.
Mhm. I just would want to get her, because we get Lavender's perspective throughout the book. You know, it's mostly written from her perspective, but I would really want to know what Catherine was feeling throughout this time, and why it was difficult. Or I kind of explain why it was difficult for her to kind of get over that hump, but what eventually drew her out of it, you know, after so much time.
Okay,
And
I
how
get
does she
that.
how does she
I can see that.
want to move forward? Yeah.
What book do you wish you could read again for the first time?
Probably, if it's not, and I hadn't read this in a long time, but if it's not Things Fall Apart, it's probably Homegoing too. That's still one of my favorite books, and it's another story that spans a massive amount of time. Like, you know, mine is just roughly 20 years or so. You're talking here centuries. And she just does an amazing job of, I feel like you're in each character's shoes, even though you only spend a chapter with them. So, yeah.
Okay. Coffee, tea, or something else when you're writing?
Ooh.
You be drinking the brown liquor when you write?
No, because I need a clear head as far as that goes. As far as I might, you know, dip into some other shrooms or something else to open my mind for a fusion of a beverage. But
Okay, you with the
some
functionals.
tea. Yeah, some tea, or maybe a little you know, lion's mane. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You know. Yeah.
I'm a functional drinker herb too.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm all with that.
For creative work, early bird or night owl?
Most of my ideas come to me very, very late, like night owl, the ideas. But as far as
I think most creatives are like that though.
yeah, as far as getting them out in a clear manner, I found, surprisingly to me, that was early in like before noon. Because after that,
Girl, that's not early bird.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, definitely before 10 a.m., but most certainly before noon at the latest. Because anything after noon, I'm just like, no. it's not working. Yeah.
Well, Monica, thank you so much for this insightful conversation. We've been trying to get this schedule for out. I'm glad I finally got able to was able to talk to you about it. I had so many things. I was just writing notes as I was. I'm one of those crazy people that when I get to read a book like this, I'm writing notes and I had to go to prepare for this, and I'm going back to the notes in my book. Like, oh wait a minute. So thank you. Your journey as both a creative storyteller and visual artist and independent artist is very inspiring. I was like, am I gonna write a book finally?
Yeah, do it.
Totally. I was like, just watching you go through this process, like, but it's been truly inspiring just watching you kind of like it all come together and then finally see the finished product was so amazing.
Thank
But
you.
before we go, please remind us where we can find Songs of Lost Themes, Sonata for the Sun, and how they can connect with you online.
Okay, well, my book is on Amazon, but I know how we're feeling about Amazon right now. So,
It's still supporting. I hate it. Well, let me first say, I know yours is on Amazon, but it's also available on
on my website.
bookshop.org on your website for if you want to support
Yes.
the independent artists, independent authors and bookstores. Give the people your website.
Yes, it is monicamccollough.com, and that's MonicamcColloughh. A lot of people put their U in there. There's different ways to spell it, but it's with an O, McCullough.com. And if you get the book through my website, it'll be signed. I have a signed copy. And plus, you can sign up for news and newsletters. I do not send out a bunch of emails. You do not have to worry about that. But when I have news, you will be the first to know. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm definitely there at Moni. That's MONI _ shy writer, SHYWRITER on Instagram, Moni _ shy writer. On Threads, obviously under the same name, and I'm on the TikTok. Trying to figure out what I'm gonna do on the TikTok, but I am on there. And it's Moni .shy writer, I believe. So it's either Moni _ shy writer or Moni .shy writer, but Moni shy writer is what I usually use on social medias to try to get my stuff out there.
And I'll link everything. Everything will be linked in the notes where you can purchase. I highly recommend that you pick up a copy of Songs of Lost Things, Sonata for the Sun. It's beautifully written. It's emotionally resonant story that will stay with you long after you turn the final page. This has been the Culture Lit Podcast. I'm Octavia, and we'll be back next week with another conversation about the books that move us and the stories behind them. Until then, keep reading, keep reflecting, and keep celebrating the power of literature.
Bye.
You've been listening to Culture Lit with Octavia Marie, and that's all for us this week. Be sure to listen, download, or subscribe to more episodes of Culture Lit. You can find Culture Lit on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Apple listeners, please be sure to leave a review and let us know what you think. Don't forget to talk to me on social or share your Black love stories at Becoming Octavia Marie on Instagram or XO Octavia Marie on Twitter.